We're going to start off with doing a little writing, Kim. Just a little, just 10 minutes of it. Got to do it. That way we're in the right mood, right place, right time, right people, right message. I could go on and on with that topic. Okay, everyone. Close your eyes, drop your chin to your chest, arms and legs uncrossed. This is like our version of a prayer. Ignore my cell phone going off in the background, please. It'll stop in a minute. Take a nice deep breath in through your nose. Blow it out through your mouth. Nice deep breath in through your nose. Blow it out through your mouth. Eyes closed, chin to your chest. Nice deep breath in through your nose. Blow it out through your mouth. And go into a nice, safe, loving, unconditional space in your mind. Nice, safe, loving, unconditional space in your mind. Ease into that space. Drift into that space. Merge with that space, please. Nice deep breath in through your nose. Blow it out through your mouth. Nice deep breath in through your nose. Blow it out through your mouth. And as you do that, allow images to come into your mind of everything that you have to be thankful for, everything you have to be thankful for. One right after the other. What you have to be thankful for. There's so much. What you have to be thankful for. Feel that gratitude, feel that appreciation. Feel the essence, the substance of everything you have to be thankful for. There's so much in all our lives. Then open your eyes, pick up your pens or fingers of the keys. Write down what you have to be thankful for today. What you have to be thankful for. What do you have to be thankful for? Keep going until I ask you to stop. What do you have to be thankful for? Just keep writing. What do you have to be thankful for? Just keep writing, opening up your heart to hear and to be heard. What do you have to be thankful for today? Okay, then put down your pens and take your fingers off the keys. Close your eyes again. Drop your chin to your chest. Go back into that special place in your mind, the place that awaits you, your true home. And ask yourself this question: what is it that I most want to get out of this evening? What is it that I most want to get out of this evening? What is it that I most want to get out of this evening? Listen, 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 not with your head, listen with your heart. Open up your eyes and write down the response to that question, beginning now. Okay, put down your pens, fingers off the keys. Let's go back in one last time for tonight. One last time. Close your eyes, drop your chin to your chest. Go back into that comfortable, loving, unconditional space in your mind that's been created just for you, just for you. And I want you to respond to this statement. I am a writer because I am a writer because I am a writer because. Feel into it, don't start writing yet. I am a writer because. Open your eyes, pick up your pens, fingers to the keys. Allow your voice to guide you. I am a writer because. I am a writer because. I am a writer because. Okay, put your pens down, fingers off the keys. Anela, introduce yourself and tell us why you're a writer.
Hi, Tom. Thanks for the question. I'm a writer because for years I have always felt that I could help others. And the sharing my story gave me not only my own internal strength, but gave others the strength to see that they could overcome adversities. So being a writer for me is a way to continue to help others in their journey.
What adversity did you overcome that you wrote about?
I overcame many adversities throughout my life as a woman of color, starting from being the first student in my grade school back in a little small town back in Louisiana, to being a first again as a person of color in the banking world. I was faced with a lot of adversities, and until I met Tom Bird, I did not realize how angry I was and how I needed to heal. In writing my story, I was able to not only share the story, but remove all of the anger and forgive so many people.
Do you have a copy of your book handy, Anela?
Absolutely. Dare to be the change. On Amazon, it's a #1 bestseller.
Let us see the back cover too, girl. And what's your website?
It's AnnellaMetoyer.com. ANNELLAMETOYER.com.
Now, every author hits a wall at some time or another where they have to either go around it, go through it, or go over it. You hit yours. Do you remember that day?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe that day to us, please?
You know, when I guess I think of many walls, Tom, and so I think of the day that I really felt I hit the wall was the day that after I had written the book that Tom called to me asking the question whether or not I should publish the book. And that probably was the day that I had to really look within myself and find my own power source, because I didn't realize how fearful I was to let this story out. So, of course, when Tom asked that question, I truly did not understand why he said that. But now when I look back, and of course I've had conversations with him about that, when I look at that now, I see that I needed to overcome my own fears so that I could move forward. And, you know, it's a good friend of mine told me that I needed to take my toe out of the water. And in that whole process, I did not realize that I was in banking for 40 years. I did not realize that I still had my toe in the wish of being back in banking, and that truly that there was another path for me. And today, with the process of forgiving, that's why I always tell people it's not just about writing the book. There is so much more in this process. That process of forgiving helps you get through the door and move forward in your journey.
So, Anela, do you remember what I told you that day?
Yes, you told me not to publish the book.
Unless what?
Unless I was truly ready for that and be able to accept all of the information that would come back at me. And, of course, when someone tells you that, you're wondering, well, what's going to really happen? But here is the joy in all of that. Every positive thing that has happened has been just absolutely wonderful for the person. And everything that maybe has come towards me as what some people may say as a negative has actually been a positive for the person. And so I'll share this one quick story. I was at an event and a lady came up to me and said, "You wrote this book?" And I said, "Yes, I wrote this book." She says, "Well, why did you go undercover as a person to go into writing a book about people of color?" And I let her finish her conversation. And I said, "No, this story is about me." And she looked at me and she said, "Are you telling me that you're African American?" And her face totally stepped away. But here is the great things and that's why I say the story really had to come out. Here's the great thing that happened out of that. There was a lady that was sitting on the side of me that said, "Oh my goodness, Anela, I read your book." And I walked away feeling the pain and the joy. But hearing how other people react, I am going to spend time with my family and ensure that they look at people differently and not look at someone because of a culture or something that may be different than our own family. Yeah. And in fact, I saw her today and she said, "Anela, I'm still on my mission. I am still working with people." So I know that this is truly the divine, that this book had to come out.
Yeah. Are you glad you wrote it?
Yes, sir. I am quite happy that I did. And thanks to you.
Well, you're welcome. What was the toughest part of the process for you?
The hardest part of the process? I really was releasing the story, because I sat down with my husband, Michael, so many times, and I would, complete a chapter, and then I would say to myself, I'm not going to publish it because I can't let go of that. I don't want people to see me standing there and they really see who I am, because people saw me as a banker, a city president, a mom, all these things, but then they're going to know the real story. Oh my God, how are they going to see me? But it's been beautiful ever since the book has come out.
So what are you doing now with the message? I know you're getting out and speaking a lot. What are you doing with the message?
I am spending a lot of time speaking to different groups, and I hope that I will eventually get a speaking agent, because I'm definitely, I can feel it. That's really what I need to do. I know I have other books within me that needs to come out. I do know that now. But I want to just continue to share the story, listen to others tell me their story. So what's so funny about this, another story, this past weekend, a gentleman a stranger walked into my father's house and wanted to meet me and shared his own story. But I will tell you, my father, who is 86 years old, said to the gentleman, I just wish you to put their real names in it so they can be accountable.
So did you feel divinely led to write this book? I mean, is this what you anticipated you were going to write?
So Tom, I will tell you that when I sat in your class, so here comes the real truth. I was writing the first night I was saying, have I lost my mind? And did Dr. Kim just really send me on this wild goose chase? I sat there, kept writing and writing and writing. And it just, I don't know, it just wasn't coming. And then it's like, oh my goodness, it came and it just flowed out. And I couldn't stop it. And it was so interesting because we had over 60 people in the room and 40 people online. And so it was like I had a bubble over my head. I didn't see anybody. I didn't feel anybody unless somebody touched me and said, "Hello, Anela." It was like somebody put this glass over my head and it poured out. So I know that the divine just happened and it flowed out.
So what have you learned about your association with the divine now after writing the book?
Wow. I am such a believer, and I will talk to anyone who will talk to me about this process, because there are so many people that have a book within them and they're afraid to let it go. And I will tell them, just trust it. If anybody, I said, because I'm not a writer. Oh my goodness. When I was working in the corporate world, I would interview people at least 5, 6 times before I hired an assistant, because I hated writing. And then going through this process, it just flowed out. So I know that when someone is fearful of writing, you have it within you. You just got to trust the divine. It's going to come out.
So you have other books inside you, right?
Yes, I do have other books within me. Yes.
And you can feel them.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Thanks, Anela. Hang on, okay?
Okay.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Lauren Velig, come on down, girl. Why are you a writer?
There, let me unmute myself. Can you hear me now?
Perfectly, thank you.
Excellent. So what did you ask me?
Why are you a writer? You're a writer because...
I'm a writer because the message that was within me had to come out or my soul would rot.
Better than explode, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the pressure was so great to write the subject that I wrote about. And it was something that I'd thought about for a while. I'd kept a journal about my about experiences of patients that I'd worked with. And the book that I wrote about was about near-death experiences. I'm a critical care physician, and I take care of people who are at the very edge of life and death. And when patients would come back from the edge and tell me of miraculous experiences or near-death experiences, I would just journal about them. And I had been invited to give a talk about this to a group of close-knit people that shared a spiritual path, certainly not the medical community. And at the end of it, someone said, when are you writing a book? And I said, I am, only I hadn't even thought about it until that very moment.
How long ago was that?
Yeah, that was a moment of the divine just kind of putting words in my mouth. And because I'd said it to real people, I couldn't go back on it.
Yeah.
And then I think I told you, Tom, about sitting on a plane with a lady that had advocated getting you to Atlanta.
Yeah.
And Patrice Dickey, if you remember her.
I remember.
Yeah, and it was just an amazing moment of synchronicity where she started telling me about a book that she wrote through the Tom Bird seminars. And I had never heard of the Tom Bird process. And unfortunately, she passed away. And about a year later, she came to me in a dream and said, why aren't you writing your book? You didn't sign up for that seminar that I told you about. And that kind of freaked me out. So I knew I had to follow through. And, you know, that may sound so far-fetched, but it's something that really happened to me and really brought me to a place where I could find someone to help me through the process of writing a book. And that was in 2014. And signing up for a Tom Bird seminar literally changed my life. I mean, I wrote that book, the soul of that book, in one weekend. And then it evolved over the course of several of the workshops. But that writing it and participating in your seminars was truly life-changing for me, not just because of the book that came through to me, but all of the friends that I met and people of like mind and writers of similar paths. And that has been ongoing and powerful.
And you faced some diversity on your own, didn't you? Because you had to face your colleagues with your interpretation of the near-death experience. Could
you say that again?
You face some adversity, facing your own blocks, by facing your colleagues. You're concerned about your colleagues interpreting.
Not as much as I thought. I mean, that was my fear. I think this book for me was about being brave. And I think that nothing has its greatest value than when there are high stakes. And for me, there were high stakes. And talking about things that are not reproducible by scientific evidence in the medical field is risky. And it can be career suicide.
Yes.
But it was a risk I was willing to take, and I felt like I had something to contribute to the conversation about listening to patients' stories about near-death experiences being part of good patient care. And taking that approach seemed to be a little bit safer for colleagues that had some doubt to interact around it.
Yeah.
Because while I made my point in my book, the point to my colleagues was, listen, these are more than just interesting stories. This was something transformative for our patients, and to listen to them and to believe them is a generous act of grace. You don't have to prove that it does or doesn't exist. It's their story, and to listen to them and let them have their truth is good patient care.
What has the book done for you emotionally and spiritually, the writing of the book?
For me, 100%, it's taught me to be brave, because it's the kind of book that I wrote and floated it to the world, hoping that nobody I knew would read it. And not only did everybody I work with read it, it was posted on the hospital website, and that was terrifying for me. To walk into that risk. To risk my professional reputation, and to risk a truth that I believe to my colleagues taught me to be brave. And writing has taught me to be brave. Speaking about it taught me to be brave.
What's the value of being brave to you? What does that give you?
It gives me confidence to speak my truth. I mean, I think we all have a truth that we believe that's central to us, and we can feel safe to present it to the world or to certain parts of the world, but to be able to stand up and say, this is my belief, and this is what I advocate for patients, and to take that risk, it's given me a lot of power in my job. And I still have my job. I didn't lose it. And that was a real concern for me. Stepping forward, am I going to risk my career?
Did any fellow physicians pull you aside and talk to you about the book?
Yeah, the most interesting thing and the most meaningful moment for me was when a very intimidating surgeon in our system, that he walks with a cloud of intimidation, and people are afraid to approach him. And he came up to me at my workstation, and he looked around to make sure nobody was listening to us. And he said, "I read your book." And I said, "Oh yeah?" And he said, "It's true. When I was 14, I died during a drowning and floated up, met my deceased grandmother that I was so close to, and an angel told me it was not my time to die." And this is a man who had walked with such a perception from us imposed on him that he was unapproachable and monodimensional. And for him to share that story with me in confidence, because he didn't feel like it was safe in the medical field to talk about things like that and be taken seriously, that was probably the most precious moment for me, for him to step forward.
That's another angel that stepped forward to talk to you.
What's that?
It's another angel that stepped forward to speak to you.
Exactly.
Yes, and Patrice Dickey passed about 5 or 6 months after she met you on the plane.
Yes.
Very
she
good
passed
friend.
From breast cancer that she had been fighting. And that moment still astonishes me, that, just 2 random airplane seats and we were seated next to each other. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, that's an amazing story.
So besides your job as a physician, you're springing out as an author. What have you been doing speaking wise? I know you were on the Today Show.
Yeah, I think you do have to, especially if you're self-published, you have to put it out there. If you're serious about getting your message to the world, you have to do the work. And so I started approaching different organizations and radio shows about my book, and one thing led to another, and I was invited to be on the Today Show and Coast to Coast. And those two interviews were pivotal interviews for me to continue getting the message out. And actually just last week, I talked to a room full of hospice workers at a conference. And so it continues. And, you know, and I think it's in large part the topic too. It's something that people are really interested in, and especially people who've had near-death experiences and hear someone from a professional world validate them. I think that has been something that has kind of perpetuated interviews and appearances as well.
So how has this book changed your life personally? Your personal beliefs, your personal experiences? How has writing changed your life?
Well, it's, you know, I've always loved the written word. I've loved to read it. I've always been an avid reader, but now I'm a passionate writer. I mean, I write every day, and I write for the love of words. And now I'm actually working with writing fiction. I'm working on a collection of short stories about growing up in the Deep South, which is my home. And that has been, writing has really found a place in my life as a point of meditation, as a practice, as a soul soother, as a point of awakening. So that's what actually your seminar did for me, is that I became kind of addicted to the written word and the power that it has to connect me to the divine.
Yes. Do you have a copy of your book handy?
I do. I had to run downstairs and get it, but here it is. Near Death in the ICU, Stories from Patients Near Death and Why We Should Listen to Them.
If I put you in contact with my good friend Jeffrey Long, I think I tried to. Did you get in contact with him, Jeffrey Long?
I reached out to him and never heard back. He's pretty busy.
Yeah, I still contact him consistently. Send me your email address and your phone number to email. I'll send it off to him, because you two get along famously.
All right.
Let's see the back cover of that lady. And the front cover again. And your website address?
And what?
What's your website address?
It's my first and last name. So it's Lauren, LAURIN, BELLG, laurenbelge.com.
So what advice would you give new writers sitting on the fence, wondering if they should write their books or not, if they have a book inside them or not?
Once they conceive of it, they should absolutely write it. It's a life-changing, I mean, if that thought drop comes to you, I feel strongly it's a directive. It's an invitation to enter into a path that is transformative. And whether you sell 10 copies or 1,000 copies, it's transformative to just go through that process of writing and feeling spirit moving through you to put words on the page that you have no idea where they came from.
Do you feel you really would have rotted if you had not written a book?
Could you say that again, please?
Do you feel you would have actually rotted?
It got to that point. I joke about it when I say that, but I think something in me would have died if I hadn't followed through, because that feeling, that compulsion was so strong to write about that topic and to put patients' stories on paper with respect, that I think that if I had not followed through, it would have been a disappointment to guidance who had compelled me to write it.
What story or two that you wrote about spoke to you most directly?
Well, the one that actually started me journaling about it was a gentleman that I encountered when I was still in training, a man who declined surgery because he had had a previous out-of-body experience during surgery, and some near-death features, and it had terrified him. He didn't know what to make of it, and so he declined surgery and died. And I feel like if I had been more present to him and been able to say to him, what you experienced was, rather than frightening, it was actually enlightening, and had been able to tell him that he was not alone and other people had experienced things like that, I feel that he probably would have made a different choice and survived. And so
Yeah.
I felt a compulsion from that moment to bear witness to people's near-death experiences, because so often they keep them quiet. They're afraid to share them for fear of how they'll be received. And so that one
Really?
experience was pivotal for me.
And when the person comes out of an NDE, they normally want to talk to the physician first if they want to talk?
Oh, they would never talk to a physician. That's the problem. We are not safe space. You know, we have created an environment in medicine where we very much as a profession say, if you can't prove it to me, it doesn't exist. And so I've actually heard some of my colleagues, and it gives me chills to hear this, to tell, and they mean well, but they'll say to the patient, you know, you have to understand you were very sick, and the brain can do funny things whenever you're sick, and essentially shut down a transformative experience. So I think that chaplains in the hospital are safe space, nurses are safe space, physicians not so much. And my mission was to change that by helping physicians understand that how they receive information that a patient is sharing with them that they may not believe themselves is important. I mean, our belief in it is irrelevant. How we show up for the patient and honor their experience, that is paramount.
Yes. So do you, with a patient who has had an NDE, do you reach out to them, or do you wait till they reach out to you? Or
No, actually, I outlined that in my book. I had a series of patients who did spontaneously tell me about their experiences, and I became intentional. I wanted to hear more. I wanted to understand what people were experiencing. So I started developing a way to approach them. And after cardiac arrest or, you know, severe illness or trauma, I started asking them, when you died, did anything unusual happen? And it seemed to me a safe question. So if nothing unusual happened, it would not seem like a strange question. But when I started asking patients if anything unusual happened when they had their severe injury or illness or clinical death, probably about 2 to 3% of the time, patients would tell me an interesting experience. And that fits the national average, actually, of 2 to 3% of the population having near-death experiences.
So what was the one underlying message that they gave to you?
Well, the common feature is absolute loss of fear of death.
Really?
Near-death experiences, even if they're positive or negative, and the majority of them are positive, less are negative, but they tend to have a transformative transformative impact on someone's life. They, in addition to losing fear of death, they go forward with a sense of altruism and a sense of wanting to serve humanity. And, you know, for people who say these near-death experiences are just hallucinations or delirium, I've worked with patients for 20 years, and I have never had a hallucination or delirium change someone's life and take away the fear of death.
So could you see a correlation between what you went through as an author with your first book and a near-death experience?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I writing about this, I mean, it's not the topic, it's the process.
Yes.
Go through the process of actually writing a book, but not just writing a book, because anybody can do that, but to write a book as a spiritual practice and to feel divine flow through you is transformative. The person I am now compared to the person who first showed up at your workshop is two totally different people.
That's great. That's great. Thanks, Lauren. Hold on for a little while, okay?
Sure.
Thank you. Jimmy, my brother from Dunkirk. Speaking near-death experiences. Tell us your story, my friend. Can't hear you. John, can you make sure he's unmuted?
He's unmuted. Get closer to your microphone, maybe, Jim. Still not hearing you, Jim.
Hey, Tom, who are you talking to?
We're talking to Jim Spina. He's unmuted, but we're not hearing him. Why don't we go to Cam, and then I'll call Jim up and we'll get it fixed.
Sounds good. Hey, Cam, how you doing?
I'm great. Thank you.
All right. Why are you a writer?
Because of you, Tom.
Thank you.
No, I completely respect what Lauren and Anela said. I was not that person. I was actually the opposite. I'm the anti-client. And when I say that is when I took your first workshop, I saw myself as not a writer. And I know all my friends have a book inside them and they want to write it and they're working on it. That wasn't me. I was never going to do this. But I took your workshop, and out of that 2.5 hours came out and went, I'm going to write this book. I knew exactly what it was, took the retreat, and have never looked back. And that's because of you.
Thank you. Now, your first book, you wrote about your stepson, which you did not expect to write about, right?
That was a complete surprise.
And, you know, you really go for it, Kim, but at the same time, you're very logical. So how did you feel at that moment when this book started coming out and you did not expect to write it?
I'll answer that in 2 parts. The first thing is that after the workshop, I knew exactly what the title was going to be. I knew exactly what the book was going to be. I trusted the process, and I trusted you. And I wrote the book, got it done in 2 days. Actually, editing takes a lot longer. That's a whole nother story. But the really completely cool thing is I was so proud of what I had done because I wanted a book like that for me as a stepmom.
Oh.
And it didn't exist, 32 years ago. As a stepmom of a special needs child who doesn't speak, who doesn't talk, who doesn't communicate, on and on and on, who needs 24-hour-a-day care, all I wanted to do was share my experiences and all of my travels and all of the resources I found to save some family time. And what I always say in the book is I don't have any answers for anybody, but I have tons of questions for you to consider. If you have an able-bodied child, you don't have to think about these things, but there are milestones that you need to think about. And then when your child becomes an adult, it's even more. And you didn't think that when you had your child. And so that's one thing. And the second thing is, as a parent, this is my experience only, but it's awesome. And most, maybe step parents wouldn't say that, but what I would say is that I am 1 degree removed from the whole situation. And so what that allows me to do is be more logical. Say, hey, we don't know this, or how do we do this, and how can we do, and that combination with a parent is the most incredible opportunity to make a difference to improve the quality of your child's life. So yeah, it's pretty cool. But then I will say the last thing is, after I wrote the book and published it, I'm like, oh my God, I just revealed my entire life to the world. It's a little scary, but at the same time, I want to say proud, like what my husband and I accomplished.
Yeah. So did you see how special of a person, how social your situation is through the writing of this book, Kim?
Say that again, Tom. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Did you see how special of a person you are through the writing of this book?
No, I saw how special you are. I saw the gift that, seriously, I mean, I really am the anti-client. So there's probably people in this webinar tonight that are like, oh my God, I want to write this book and I've been thinking about it, whatever. That wasn't me. Whatever you do, you have such a gift.
Thank you.
That to take somebody who was never going to write and then have them be a writer. And now I'm soon next month publish 3 books with you. It's amazing. Amazing.
Personally, what's the most amazing thing that you've gone through the writing of these 3 books?
Yeah, so where the negative or fixed mindset came from was, I feel like I'm a great speaker, I'm a great trainer, I'm a great whatever. And I never had it that I could write for a variety of reasons. And then in the retreat, I found myself, the word I use, which is weird, is somehow it channels out of me. The first book was so amazing to me. I'm still in shock about it, when I see it. But it literally channeled out of me. I didn't change one chapter. I didn't change anything about it. It was just there. And the most amazing thing is, after I saw it, I never went back and changed. I mean, I really didn't change anything. Yes, I edited it, but that was really cool. The second book was something that you did in an exercise that I loved. I didn't even know about blogging. And then I don't even remember the exercise you gave us, but it was something about blogging. I'm like, well, I'll try it. I don't even understand it, but I'll try it. And 52 blogs later, I have another book. And I have a website that's up and functioning. And it was so easy. I mean, that's the most amazing thing to me. You've made the whole process so easy.
Well, it's easy to work with an author like you, Kim.
Thanks.
So let me ask this. Do you feel that divinely the presence of your stepson was behind the writing of your first book?
Yes.
No
question. Yes, absolutely. And it is so weird that you said that, because, I mean, I know you say it all the time, but somehow in the downloading of the message that I wrote in that book, there was a spiritual aspect to it. And I talked about the angels that my husband and I met along the way. And they really were angels. And I would have never used that word before, but it just came out.
So do you believe that your stepson's presence was integral to the writing of that book and his message? He was part of the message too?
100%. Brooks is awesome.
Yeah. Did you feel him during the experience?
For sure.
How did you feel him? How did you feel him? Did you feel his presence near you?
The whole time, for sure. And, you know, I got interviewed by a group the other day about a whole book and everything. And there's still time. You think 32 years later you get over some things, but you can get to that moment when something bad happened to him. And, you know, it's immediate tears or immediate stress or immediate, that doesn't go away as a parent or a step parent.
Yes. Yes. How did your husband like the book?
The best thing that happened was, first I had to ask his permission. Let's talk about that. I wanted to make sure that it was okay. And he said, okay. And then the second thing, though, as a result of that, so if you are a parent, and I'll talk about parents first. If you're a parent of a special needs child, you think you're the only one while you're out there by yourself. This has never happened to anybody else. And I really thought, you know, Brooks was born in the 70s, and so that was true. And so I thought, well, is there really a value to writing this book? Because, you know, medical science and technology has really changed a lot. And then I thought, you know, babies still come home and they're not 100%.
Yeah.
So maybe there's really a need. And, but the most amazing thing that's happened to me, and I'm so proud of, is when I wrote the book and I gave him a copy, obviously it was the first person I gave a copy to, he started sharing with the people. He lives in a different community, and he started sharing with people down there. And these are farmers and ranchers. And to a person, every single person had someone in their family or someone they knew who had a special needs. And it changed his life. And what I mean by that is that for the first time in 30-something years, I'm going to get emotional, is that he could talk about his son. Because in the early days, he took Brooks out to the grocery store, and people in the 70s were very unkind.
Yeah. Yes.
And like, why do you have your child out in public? You should put him away and do all this stuff. And he was his son. And now he's so proud. And sorry, but it was the best thing that ever happened. So, like, this man is so different. And he's so proud. And I'm so happy for him.
Oh. This book has really blessed all of you, hasn't it?
It has. I mean, it's life-changing.
So the second and third books you're writing are completely different, aren't they?
Totally different. There's not much here. Second book is 52 Weeks to Exceptional Leadership. And my third book, which is coming out next month, Tom, by the way, is called Promotion Protocol. But I really think it's going to change the trajectory for leadership in the United States. I believe that 100%.
You know, I've often said, Kim, that the first book we seem to write for God. Like God says, I'll give you 10 books if you do me the favor of delivering one for me first.
Right.
Do you feel that was the truth in your situation?
Tom, if you had told me that I would, let's go back to the beginning when we knew each other, okay? Like, okay, this is the girl that's not writing the book. Then I wrote a book. Then last year I wrote 2 books and published with you. And then this year I have a third book coming out. And I actually see 7. So I already know what the next one's going to be or the next one. But the most amazing thing is they're different. I think, honestly, if I were going to say what you did is you got the first book out because it was part-driven.
Yes.
It's what needed to be said. And then the following books are really based on my experience and my career success. And it's a completely different direction.
Yeah.
And my third book, I know for sure, is my best book.
Yes. It's great, Kim. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Give us your website address, please.
Oh, it's Dr. Nugent, DRNGENT speaks.com. And the first book is called Did I Say Never? Right. Yay. So if you think about it, so the last thing I'll say is, if you've ever thought in your life about, I'm never going to fill in the blank, and then think how your life turned out, read my book.
Thanks, Kim. Hold on a little bit, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Jimmy. Still a lot going through, John?
He said he had it fixed. Jim, you there? Turn your speaker up, Jim. Maybe that's what you need to do, because we're not hearing you at all.
Try it again, Jimmy. Still not going through, buddy. We'll come back in about 5, James. Anela. If you can think back over to about 1.5 years ago, a little bit less than 1.5 years, when you came to the Houston retreat, and feel as you felt at that time before you wrote your book, and think back now, think forward now to how you feel, what would you say to yourself before you took that retreat?
I would describe myself as lost. And after the retreat, I truly found myself. I'm at peace. I'm just at peace. So
what would you say to yourself back then if you could counsel her that Anela before she wrote the book?
It's interesting you say that, because I had mentioned to Dr. Kim that it was on my list of things that I wanted to do, but I can tell you it was at the bottom of the list. It was like, okay, I'll do it before I reach maybe 90 years old, okay? it totally at the bottom of the list. And it's just so interesting because we had the conversation about that was on my list in one of our coffees that we had. And then she comes back and tells me that she went to a retreat and that she's written her book. And of course, I thought she had lost her mind. And what I say to myself now is that if anyone on this call, if it's at the bottom of the list, pull it to the top. It will free you.
Yeah. It'll free you.
Yes.
Free you from what?
It will free you from, when I look at where I was, a lot of self-doubt. Because, the interesting thing, Tom, is that, I told my husband that I was going to retreat. And because I'm Catholic, he thought I was going to a Catholic retreat. And when I shared with him I was going to spend some time with you at a book retreat and writing retreat, he thought, of course, he thought I'd lost my mind. But, when I arrived there, it was not at all what I expected. It was so much more. To describe it to people, in fact, I was on the call this morning with a young lady that I had set up a call with to talk about, because she has a book inside of her. And she was trying to understand why.
So you think it's your Bluetooth?
James. Go ahead, Ella.
Why she needed to do that now. And the more we talked about it, and I described how when I arrived there, that I was expecting that okay, I'm gonna learn how to write. He's gonna tell me, pick up my pen and start writing. It wasn't at all what I imagined. You just have to trust it and believe in it when you step into the room.
Or be desperate enough to step in there in the first place. Right?
Whether it's in the room or whether, I would just say it is the space of the divine. You just have to let go, because I'm a little hard-headed. I like to control.
Nah.
And, that's the space of just letting go. And I thank you for that gift, because now when I stand up and speak to individuals now, when I'm giving speeches, I now tell myself, you're not in control. Just let it come from the heart. And it's gonna happen. And when I do that, of course, it's just a different space. I wish I would have had that space when I was president of the bank at the time. Then I probably would have done things a lot different.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Anella.
You're welcome.
James, let's try you again, buddy. Still not coming through. We'll come back to you another 5. Lauren. Hi to your daughter.
Yeah, this is my daughter, Katie. She's doing her homework here.
How old's Katie?
Katie, she's 15.
Wow, big girl. Hi, Katie. Hi, Katie.
Hi.
So, I was asking Kim about if she felt that the presence of her stepson was guiding her message in her first book. Do you feel the presence of your patients guided the message in your book?
Actually, I feel like it was probably higher than that.
Yeah.
I shared patient stories that they trusted to me, but the overarching theme was how to work with patients who have had those near-death experiences, both for caregivers and families. And, a lot of the insight that fell onto the page, I would write it and then have the feeling of I had no idea where that came from. Except, it doing your process, I knew it came from the divine. I knew it came from something that was not within me. And then that makes the work feel pretty holy, actually.
Yeah. So I often say that desperation is the forefather of faith. And I really believe the people that show up on retreats are desperate. They got to get the message out. Do you feel that was your case?
I've always been a person of faith, but there was something about this particular process that strengthened it. And, it's pretty powerful when you feel like you're being used for a message. I mean, that's an amazing feeling. It's pretty humbling too. And it makes the author journey more doable, because then you're not doing it from a place of self. You're doing it from a place of purpose and mission.
Do you feel that message has germinated in other areas of your life too? Like being a mother, being a wife, being a friend, being a daughter?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, that act of actually writing, with inspiration and divine connection really brought my focus into my awareness that we're not alone in anything we do. And there's always inspiration and guidance for being a parent or a wife or however we show up in the world.
So your life has been better in general as a result of writing your book?
Yeah, I think so.
So what are your plans for the future as a writer?
Actually, I'm actually in the process of applying for a degree in creative writing.
Really?
Yeah. So it really took a hold of me, and I'd like to be able to teach it at the college level, because I've just fallen in love with the written word, and so I'm going to be pursuing a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing and try to teach it.
In Wisconsin?
Probably. I mean, it's my home. It's my children's home, and
oh, that's amazing. You'll be an amazing teacher.
Thank you. Yeah, but that's something that came out of writing this book.
Wow. So a whole different life path for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's something I really I want to shift gears and teach people how to write beautiful words.
Oh, that would be amazing. Be amazing. Thanks, Lauren. Thanks. Hang on for another minute again. We're going to try Jimmy. Jimmy.
Computer. Yeah, can you hear me?
You're coming through. Woo!
All right. Thanks to John's troubleshooting.
Speaking of near-death experiences.
Yeah. So on August 8th of 2016, I did die. And as a result of traumatic blood loss. And that's really not the story of the story, but to give it, 30 seconds of encapsulation, I did have a near-death experience, which is also not the topic of my book. And I had 16 units of blood and 4 units of plasma transfusion. Well, it's a lot more than you got in your body right now. And actually I died more than once, but I was resuscitated, and I was in a coma for a week, and they did some surgery. Long story short, I did walk out of that hospital after 2 weeks. And the reason I wrote the book, was because I was told to. I was compelled to.
Who were you told to by?
My divinity.
During the NDE?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so I'll just lay it out there. I was an alcoholic. And I was suffering from end-stage alcoholism, and I bled out catastrophically, which is not uncommon. It was lifted from me while I was dead, and I was told it was lifted from me, and it in fact is lifted from me. I've never had a desire, urge, anything, and I've had some pretty tough circumstances in my life, and there's nothing to it anymore.
Yeah.
And long story, I can't really articulate a lot of it, but I was told to write this book, but I didn't really know everything that entailed. And I thought other than the natural death that awaits us all, I wouldn't have to die again. But I did, and I died writing this book.
Yeah.
And
how so?
I don't really mean that to be too abstract or creative or emphatic. I did because I had a complete change of psyche in the process of writing this book. And I will just tell you that the handful of steps that I'll condense it into is, I didn't want to, talk about a book you don't want to. I'm a nuclear physicist, and I became pretty successful in the nuclear physics as an executive in a commercial nuclear power industry. And I hid my alcoholism like all alcoholics do. And when I got told to write a book about my alcoholism, I'm like, give me any other book, any other book. And I remember asking you at the workshop, can I write anonymously? Can I use a name? I went through this struggle and then I was picking, I got a website and a newsletter. I'm thinking, well, make sure none of my work associates are on there. And then finally I got this, it came to me the strength to do it. But in the process of writing this book, I alienated myself from myself, as it turned out, from other people and myself. And I went through a grievance process that's a lot like a Kubler-Ross process. And it was grief. It was loss. I had lost myself in that hospital. I wasn't who I was. I didn't do what I did. And in the process of writing this book, so I lost myself. And I would tell you, I got a new identity. Well, I didn't get a new identity, but I found who I was.
Wow. Who is that now, Jim?
That is a person that, I'm a person that wants relationship with others, and I want to help others. I want to be in relationship with others. All the true joy in my life now comes from contact with others and giving, being of service to others. And I will tell you, that's 180 degrees different than how I was for all of my life.
Wow.
And so now if you were to ask me, why am I a writer, I would tell you that because I seek truth.
Yeah.
I want to understand. And this is the only way I know of that's had a transformation and a complete change that has allowed me to understand truth. And I'll give you an example of that was, I wrote a memoir, of course. I wrote a nonfiction memoir about my alcoholism. And I deliberately, I talk about, well, I certainly talk about the incredible medical trauma because that's a big hook, and people that are drinking need to know this is what's at the end of the road. But I make the NDE experience extremely minuscule. When I say extremely, like maybe a sentence. And because it became clear to me that's not the point of this particular book. It may be a downstream book, it may not. And the few people that I have shared that with come to the conclusion that I'm either psychotic, pathological, or both. And so, and I don't want to portray that in this book.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, it was true. So when you write a memoir, okay, so the first thing is the foundation of all alcoholism is deceit.
Yeah.
You might want to extrapolate that to addiction, but I'll just talk about for alcoholism. And it's deceit of others, and it's self-deceit. Right? In order for a man to truly keep a secret, he must keep it from himself first.
Yes.
That is the truth. And, but when you're writing a memoir, that presents a challenge because you got to go through your memory. I needed to tell the truth about an event that happened 25 years ago, about what I did to my family 18 years ago. And, your memory plays tricks on you. This isn't just alcoholics, but your memory plays tricks on you because it's jaded. Right? You only get fragments and pieces if you try to remember something 20 years ago. And you really have to pull, and you have to listen, you have to give it time. And then you have to try to remember, well, what were you feeling? What were you feeling? And you have to talk to some other people. And then, for me, all of a sudden, it gets illuminated. And boy, it's not what I remembered. Now, the self-serving, self-seeking person that created that morphed those memories isn't the person you see.
Yeah.
And that's the nature of a memoir. And I understand it's that way for most memoirs, because that's why women are able to have a second child, right? Because we alter pain in our memory. And we always alter it in a manner that makes it less painful for good reason. It's a piece of our mental survival mechanism or instincts. But it's not a good reason when you're doing what I was doing. And then if you're an alcoholic, you've created a memory that has nothing to do with you. Okay? It has nothing, and it has nothing to do with the people outside of you. And so I died, and then my psyche I had a complete change of psyche, and I know a different me, and this me understands that everything in life, for me, I'm only speaking for me, is through relationships. Through my relationship with my divinity, and through my relationships with other beings.
And the book brought that to conclusion to you?
Yeah, it's been 14 months. June 6th, I'll be able to show you my book.
Yeah.
And it's been a long 14 months because I had to re-experience it. So, the traditional catharsis is, this was an incredibly cathartic book because there are horrible events associated with this. And there's a tremendous fear, too. My book is called I Almost Murdered a Complete Stranger. And I'll leave it at that, but I will tell you that your soul reads were instrumental to me, Tom.
Thank you.
You invested a lot of time in me in that process, and I wanted to avoid a few things.
Good luck.
Well, I did. And I talked with you about it. Well, one of them was The Stranger. Okay.
Yeah.
And you said that's the book. That's the book. And I didn't listen to you till after we stopped talking, and then I reflected on it, and then I said that is the book. That's the unique selling proposition. But forget that. That's my story. I'm supposed to be telling my story. I can't omit that.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't give a shit. And then you said something else. You said, let the reader decide where they're going to land.
Yeah.
Because when I had to introduce, and I was scared to death of The Stranger. I've been afraid of The Stranger for 42 years.
Yeah.
Scared to death. And reading the book, The Red Dragon, helped me a lot.
Yeah.
It's my own Red Dragon.
Yeah, we talked about that.
That helped me. See, all of that helped me because, and then that's, we were talking about courage before. See, to me, real courage for me, since had lived a life of deceit, is the courage to face and tell the truth.
Yeah. Real,
honest truth. Get rid of the foreshadowing, the painted image, the self-seeking, the self-serving, the chameleon, all the patina you put on yourself for different situations. What is who are you and what are you motivated to do right now, and why are you doing that? That's not, it's
easy to do, my friend.
No, it is not. But
the right thing to do.
The result of it, though, is tremendous freedom. And I always thought I would regret my past.
Yeah.
I don't regret my past now. And I don't want to close it. The only way I can help people, for the people I'm trying to help right now, is if I don't regret it and I don't shut the door on it.
Yeah.
I'm of no value unwounded.
Yes, yes. And all this came to you from the book.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The book changed my life. It changed me. I didn't change, but my awareness of me changed. And it started when I walked out of the hospital. And then I understand now a little more of, what's behind all of the reasons why I needed to write this book. But, we grow, right? Reincarnation takes time.
Yes.
And I will, is Laura still on the line? I can't see her.
Yep, she sure is. Unmute yourself, Lauren.
The only thing I will mention is the validation of, I did speak with some of my medical doctors about my India experience, and I was met with fierce resistance. I'm
not surprised.
I was probably at what's considered to be, if not the number one, University of Maryland Shock Trauma Center is a leading shock trauma center in the country. And many top universities, medical centers, have patterned theirs after it. And so I talked with the surgeon that did one of the surgeries, and I told him what happened. And he said almost identically what you said, almost identical. He said, you have to understand that you were hypothermic when you came in here, had no blood in your body, you were on the verge of death from dehydration, your heartbeat, your pulse was 164, and you were in a coma. And he goes, so your mind is not functioning like it would. It will do bizarre things. I said, no. I said, I saw you. And he said, and I saw you sitting around a table because you didn't know how to save my life. And he said, well, how many of us there were? And I said, there was 4 of you. He goes, well, oh yeah, okay, there's 4 of us. And I said, and one of you had on a different colored set of scrubs. And he said, well, what color were they? And I said, they were green, because they had brought in somebody from Johns Hopkins University to help them solve this problem. And they had a different color scrub on. And that was the guy. And he said, well, that's a coincidence. That's not a coincidence, but and then he asked a couple of questions, and I knew what was said. And then he said, well, he goes, it's just like a lot of the healings that occurred. He said, you're just a statistical anomaly. That's all. And so after that, I really stopped trying to explain any of that. It was instrumental to me, or I wouldn't be here, but it's not the point. It's not my message right now. But I will say the medical community they like what happened to me, and they like the fact that they did some, relatively new techniques on saving people's lives, and have a new case study. They have a new case study in rapid transfusion of blood and how much a person can actually take. But that part's good. And I get asked a lot of questions. I've been brought, but they don't want to hear that other part. Like, you didn't actually die. You were resuscitated. I was like, how could you get resuscitated if you don't die? I said, did I have a heartbeat? Was I breathing? No. I said, isn't that the definition of dead? And it never went anywhere. So that's all I'll say on that. But I do need to send you an email, Lauren.
Please do. Let's communicate. But you highlighted exactly what I try to bring forward, that it's a disservice to medical patients to tell them that something transformative that they experienced didn't happen to them. And honestly, how dare we?
It really is, because I'll tell you, when I was in the hospital, I knew what happened to me, and it made a profound change in my life, and it stuck way past that. But it was degrading, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because I knew that here's the head of neurosurgery for University of Maryland Medical Center, and he thinks I'm not quite right. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm sitting here trying to get better. I've got any place there's a hole in your body, they can stick something in. They had something, and in some places where there wasn't holes, they made them. And I'm like, you're trying to get better, and it doesn't. It's not a great recuperative environment.
Yeah. When
the doctors are basically, don't say anything, we'll fix you up. But it has been great since then. And I think after about 7 months, I realized the worst was over, and I started to get amazed at what was happening to me. And
your book was a part of that.
That it was the central essence of it. I would not be me today if it wasn't for the endeavor to write this book. It recreated me. It induced the complete change of psyche because of the truth that I had to seek. And it profoundly changed my relationship with my I'll just use your words, divine author with them.
Thank you, James. Thank you for that, Jimmy.
And thanks for getting me on finally.
Thank you. So let's just go around real quickly. And I want each one of you just to say what your recommendation would be to new authors based on what you learned. Jimmy, quick.
My recommendation to new authors is plunge forward, write the book. It's not an option. If you feel like you need to write a book, that's alive. That concept is alive. If you don't do it, you're murdering a living part of you. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Jimmy. Lauren.
Don't overthink it. Just get into your heart space, write your heart out, and be brave.
Thank you, Lauren. Anela.
I'll say what my father always said. If you don't, who will?
Yeah. Thank you to all of you tonight for being with us. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Anela. Thank you, James. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, John. Talk to you all soon. Thank you again.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.